Hi everyone! Now then, this is a doll's house video, but most of this video includes information about my artwork and my paintings. And that's because I have my paintings currently on these wooden boards, and I want to use one of these wooden boards for the base of my doll's house so that I can attach the miniature staircase and landscape the outside area. But in order to do that, I need to remove my paintings. So this week I've mainly been focusing on finishing off my paintings and popping the paintings into the frames and then choosing which piece of wood to use for the base of my doll's house. So my first job was to sign my paintings because I had already actually varnished my paintings but I'd completely forgotten to sign them. So I'd used some acrylic paint to paint a signature onto each painting, and whilst that was drying I decided to paint these frames. So I always look out for frames when I'm in charity shops because you can get some really beautiful wooden frames, and I decided that I wanted to paint all of these frames the same colour to make them look like they're all from the same collection of frames. So I had some lovely French chic paint and I used this to paint each frame black, and the paint is a lovely matte texture. And whilst the frames were drying, I tried to take my artwork off the boards. Now, I hadn't actually used artist tape here to stick these down. I'd used some packaging tape, but it had worked really well and it was actually fairly easy to take off the boards, so that was really good. At this point everything was going well. I was happy with how the frames were looking. But when it came to actually trying to put the artwork into the frames, I realised a big problem. So the artwork was bigger than the frames, and I worked out where I needed to cut so that they could fit inside the frames. However, this is where I'd made a mistake. So when I'd painted my signature onto my paintings, I hadn't thought about exactly where they needed to be so that they could be seen. So my signatures were actually half inside the area that could be seen and half underneath the frame. So I had to have a rethink. Now then, the little mouse picture, the signature is just about in the frame. So I think that one's okay. But I decided that I needed to cut the current signatures off and move each painting down into a smaller frame. So I did also have this frame which I'd painted, and I double checked to see if any of the paintings would fit into this one, but unfortunately the size and the shape wasn't quite right. So instead I started to remove the paintings from the frames that they were in, and then I worked out which frame they could swap to. So these keys move to the frame that I was using for the fish. And then the painting of an orange and an acorn was going to go into the frame that had the keys in it. I'm actually really happy about this swap because I wasn't too pleased with the composition of my painting of the orange because there was a lot of orange background to the left of the fruit, and by swapping the frame it meant that I could alter this, and it meant that the actual orange and the branch and leaf now fill more of the frame. I'd painted these on canvas paper, which is why I was able to cut them, and I'd used water mixable oil paints and I had varnished them as well. Unfortunately, my little painting of a fish now doesn't have a frame to go into because that was the smallest of my paintings and it was already in the smallest frame. So I'm going to keep looking out now for more frames that will fit, and I'm going to have to take my painting with me, I think, as I look for frames to try and make sure that I get one that's the correct size. So I popped my painting of my keys into its new frame, and I think that this looked quite nice. So I do now need to re-sign these paintings that have moved to smaller frames because I've cut the signature off the bottom. But this does now mean that I have a spare board to stand my doll's house on, so I've chosen this one. It fits the doll's house and a little staircase on it with about 1 millimetre. with the stairs hanging over. Now I'm not actually going to be using those stairs, I'm going to make my own. But there's some stairs that came out of the doll's house, so I know that they are the correct scale, so I'm kind of using them just to work out the size of the staircase. So on the bottom of this wooden board, I stuck some felt feet down so that they don't scratch my piano, because this is where my doll's house stands. I found these felt feet in a charity shop, and the doll's house fits really nicely onto this board when it's pushed all the way over to the right, which is perfect because that is how it will sit next to the doll's house that's also with it on my piano, and the staircase will go at the side here. I will have to make a little landing space and then have a few more steps up to the doorway. So that is what I'm going to work on in next week's video. So it's just been a short little video this week. I just wanted to give you a quick update so that you knew where I was up to with my doll's house. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you've enjoyed the video. I am going to work on my new staircase this week, ready for next week's video, so I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, please do leave a comment, and I hope that you have a lovely week.